Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 28th March today, and in this video we are going to solve some important questions which could be very much relevant for your preparation. But before we'll start our discussion, I would like to give the brief introduction about this initiative so that if you are new to our channel you will get more connected with us. Basically in this video we are going to discuss three types of questions and these questions would be taken from three different sources. So depending on it, the first set of questions which we are going to discuss here would be taken from the current affairs. What we are going to do, we'll take up the most important articles from the newspapers. We'll try to break them down into the simplest language possible, and we'll try to derive the possible prelims questions from those particular articles, so that it will give you the idea which part of the newspaper is important for you, what should be your approach when you are reading these news articles, and how you can expect a possible prelims question from those particular topics. So this is what we are going to do in the first phase of our discussion. After solving questions with respect to current affairs, we will shift our approach to the second part. Here we will discuss questions from the static portion. Currently we are discussing Indian polity, and in Indian polity we are discussing the Parliament of India. And right now we are discussing the Rajya Sabha in the Parliament of India. So today we are going to discuss few more concepts related to Rajya Sabha, and we'll try to derive the possible prelims question from those particular concepts, so that it will give the idea how exactly a question can be asked with respect to these related concepts, which seem very unimportant to us, which seem very discreet to us, but still they are very important for you guys. UPSC can surprise you from such topics, they can ask you such questions, and that is exactly why we had brought it here, to give you the proper practice of those questions. After solving questions from the current affairs and the static part, we will shift our approach to the last part of our discussion, where we will solve questions from the previous year question book. To me this is one of the most important part of our discussion, because in here we will learn what is the vocabulary used by UPSC for framing your papers, who are the years, what are the different trends they try to follow for framing the questions for you guys, and at the same time we'll try to understand what can be the different methods which we can implement in the exam if we don't have the proper knowledge of the question and still solve that question. I'm talking about the elimination methods, and at the same time we'll try to learn how we can implement this information in the upcoming exam. So this is in nutshell what we are going to do in this video. Now before we'll start our discussion, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel, do share it with your friends, and do please write in the comments what else should we bring for you guys. Now without any delay, let's have a look at the first question which we had brought here. As you can see here on the screen, the question is basically about the article 124 of the Constitution of India. So why we had brought this question here? Before going to that context, we will first solve the question. Let's get the information through this question about article 124. Then we will see why we had brought this question here. Let us solve it first. As here you can see, the question says, with reference to article 124 of the Constitution of India, consider the following statements. First statement, article 124 specifies that the Supreme Court of India shall consist of a Chief Justice of India until Parliament by law prescribes a larger number of, or not more than 7 other judges. No, it is not only 7 now, it has been increased. So this statement, because of this not more than 7 other judges, it becomes incorrect. So first statement is incorrect. So here we can directly go to the options part and go to our answer. We can apply elimination method here. We can eliminate option A, we can eliminate option C because option 1 is given in there, and also we can eliminate option D. So with respect to this question, without just by reading the first statement, we came to the conclusion that answer of this question is option B, that is 2 and 3 only. Now let's have a look at this second statement. Second statement says the appointment of a judge of the Supreme Court is made by the President by warrant under his hand and seal after consultation with such of the judges of the Supreme Court and of the High Court in the states as the President may deem necessary. 100% correct. This because of this statement where the collegium came into the existence. The collegium came into the existence, and which is the point of concern right now. That's why we had brought this question here. So second statement is correct. Third statement, to be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court, a person must have been for at least 10 years an advocate of high court or of two or more such courts in succession. 100% correct. At least for 10 years you should be an advocate of an high court or two or more such courts in succession. So third statement is also correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement would be correct statements would be statement 2 and statement 3, and from the code given below the correct code would be option B, that is 2 and 3 only. So now I hope you had understood you had understood a little bit about Article 124. Now let's come to the context why we had brought this question here. Was in discussion in today's news article, we talked about the decision. Right now you would have heard about the case in Delhi High Court, where a judge, his residency, because that his residence caught fire, and it was found that there was huge amount of money there. So there are cases of corruption. There are allegations of corruption related to judges. So in this way, there is definitely the need of transparency. There is the need of transparency, the credibility of the judges which are appointed. So with respect to the appointment of the judges, there is the need of the transparency. So with respect to this, today's article dealt with that the judiciary right now, the condition in which the judiciary right now is with respect to appointment, it has been caught under two extreme decisions. First one is of the collegium, which right now we are following the collegium system, which was finally established by the third judge's case. How the collegium was established, the president will consult the CGI with additional four senior most judges who will who would recommend the names of the judges to be appointed for the Supreme Court. So with this regard, here the issue is of the transparency. It is very much opaque how the collegium recommends the names of the judiciary. What is the criteria for that? It is very much opaque with respect to that. Is there any nepotism followed by the judges? So this is very much opaque, and right now the country, everybody wants to know what is happening there, how they are appointed, but it is not given to the public. But at the same time, and also it is alleged that if only the judiciary is appointing the judges, it makes it very much prone to the corruption. It makes it very much prone to the nepotism and all that stuff. But at the same time, we saw through the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, when NJAC was brought in, when we saw that the executive tried to interfere with the judiciary, that there was the role of the executive in the judiciary, in the appointment of the judiciary, but the Supreme Court did reject that. It made it unconstitutional because it was against the separation of power. So there are also the NJAC, it does have its benefits, but at the same time it does have its drawbacks too. It gives, if the executive will interfere in the judiciary, then how can the separation of power, which is the basic fundamental right, which is the basic right, how can it be, which is the basic feature of the constitution, how it can be protected? If the executive will be electing the judiciary, then judiciary won't do anything against there would be no separation of power, there would be no checks and balance on the executive. So definitely through this discussion, the author here highlighted that definitely the right now the judiciary is caught between two extreme conditions, to either to go for the collegium, which is continuing in our country, to highlight all the issues that is happening there, or to opt for the NJAC, which whose discussion has re-emerged in the Rajya Sabha. So there is definitely extreme conditions between the two. And also here, there were few way forward was given by the author himself. He said that there should be the full-time judicial appointments commission for appointment of for appointment purpose. There should be, instead of NGAC or collegium, there should be the full-time judicial appointment commission, as like in the UPSC and other public service commissions. There should be, with respect to judiciary, there should be the full-time appointment commission. So this was the way forward given by the author here. So with this, I hope we had got the basic understanding of the context of the question as well as the question here. Now with this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought there. Here the question, as you can see, is about the medical termination of pregnancy. Why it is in news? Because there was discussion in today's news article about the right to access to abortion. About abortion, there are various issues. Abortion, there are various issues, and if we will broadly categorize them, it would come under two headings. One, those who support it, supporters, and second, those who reject it. We can broadly classify abortion, the role of abortion, how it is perceived in our country on these two bases. For the supporters, what they say, that it is woman's right, it is woman's womb, it is woman's body. If she does not like it, if she does not feel comfortable with it, it should be her right to reject it. It should be her right to go for the abortion, to terminate the pregnancy. And it is all about the woman who is having the baby in her womb. So with respect to this, in opposition to this, there are those who reject it, who they say that it is not only about the woman. After a few weeks, when the fetal grows into the body, that fetus, which is in the body of that woman, that is a separate living entity now. That after a few weeks it would be able to survive without the womb of the woman. So there are separate rights for the fetus. So these are two separate persons here. With respect to those who reject it, these are two separate persons here. And if we will assume that right to abortion is the right of the woman, but at the same time you cannot use your right to cancel somebody else's right. Right to live is the right of the fetus. So how can we reject it with respect to the right to abortion? So definitely there is always a tussle between these two approaches. And with respect to India, we had adopted, we can say, a middle path with respect to that. If we will see with respect to USA, earlier they tried to go for the abortion, but it was finally rejected. And similarly in India, we had tried to adopt the middle path, and that we'll understand through this question. Up to certain time period, abortion is allowed, but with certain conditions. But after that, the abortion is not allowed. So let's understand that through this question. Here the question says, consider the following statements regarding the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 as amended in 2021. First, the MTP Amendment Act 2021 increased the upper gestation limit for abortion to 24 weeks for all women. First you have to understand that earlier it was 20 weeks only. Now it has been increased to 24 weeks. But is it increased? Has it been increased to every woman? No, it is not increased for everyone, but for certain rare condition. For example, if there is any victim of the rape, anybody victim of the incest, or or any other, if there is some genetical abnormality related to the baby in the womb, then only this 24 weeks can be used. Second statement, so first statement is incorrect. It is not for everybody, but only for certain category of women. Second statement, the act permits, through this statement itself we can come to the final conclusion. The answer would be option B, as we can eliminate these options here. So it would be this, how you solve the questions in exam. That's why I'm repeating such trends here. So second statement, the act permits termination of pregnancy based on contraceptive failure, and this clause now includes unmarried woman. 100% correct. Earlier it did not include unmarried woman, but after 21 amendment it included unmarried woman too. So second statement is correct. Third statement, state level medical boards are constituted. Here please do remember this statement. State level medical boards are constituted under the act to assess cases where termination is sought beyond 24 weeks due to substantial fetal abnormalities. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is statement 2 and statement 3. So definitely this the concept of abortion, it has huge discussion in our society. It is a kind of a legal right of a woman, but it is not easily available to every woman. It changes with respect to the cases. If for example, if the woman would be teen, if she would be underage, then the case would be studied differently. And if it would be, it depends upon the nature of the baby in the womb also. So there are various conditions associated with it. But at the same time, we have to look into the ethical issue of it, into the moral issue of it, whether it should be allowed, whether abortion should be totally allowed or not. We have to look through various lenses to come to the final conclusion. But if right now the question about the termination of pregnancy would be asked, you have to remember these important facts which we discussed here. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we have brought there. Well, here the question is about the SIPRI report, which was recently released. Why we discussed this? Because today's news article in particular is not with respect to the discussion on the SIPRI report, but it is about the India's dependence on the defense, how much India is dependent on defense imports, how much India is dependent on defense imports. Currently we are seeing that after Ukraine in 2020, recent SIPRI report, we saw that how India, after Ukraine, India is the biggest importer of the defense artifacts. But still, India is very much dependent on, earlier we used to be very much dependent on Russia, but we saw that after the Russia's aggression towards Ukraine and sanctions from the Western countries, India has shifted its nature, its approach towards other countries, especially United States and US and France. But still, the author here highlights that this dependence is not always good for a country. This author highlights here that if you are dependent on anything, that means your autonomy gets compromised. You have to follow the commands of the country which you are importing from. And also here the author highlights the concern that we are changing from Russian dependence to the US dependence. It is going to be much worse in the future, because Russia has some certain qualities which US does not have. So with respect to these things, keeping these things into mind, it becomes important for us to analyze the question, analyze the SIPRI report. Now, what it is all about. So let's solve the question here. The question says, consider the following statements regarding the recent SIPRI Stockholm International Peace Research Institute report on global arms trade. First statement: according to the report, India is among the world's largest arms importer, 100% correct. Second statement, and it is second largest after Ukraine. Second statement: the report indicates a significant decrease in global arms transfer over the past few years. The report indicates a significant decrease in global arms past 5 years. No, this is totally incorrect. It is opposite of that. Third statement: the United States and France are the top two arms exporters globally as per the report, 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 3 only, and from the code given below, the correct code would be option B. With this, this statement is very easy to understand, because we are seeing right now there are two, if we can see, two major wars are going on, first between Gaza and Israel, and Russia and Ukraine. So assuming this statement to be correct is nonsense from the aspirant. So second statement would be incorrect, and we are left with option B, that is 1 and 3 only. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought there. Well, here the question is basically about the Article 15 of the Constitution of India. The article is basically about the right of woman to roam outside, as it is not restricted by the Constitution but by the society. She feels afraid to go outside. So with respect to this, we need to understand, even though we have these rights available to everybody here in our country, but still there is, in a way, in different way, we can say, these rights are restricted for certain categories, for especially for the woman, not through the constitution but in a intrusive manner. These rights are restricted. So it becomes important for us to have the basic understanding of this article 15. Let's see what does it say. The question says, consider the following statements regarding article 15 of the Constitution of India. First statement: article 15 prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth only in relation to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, places of public entertainment, maintained wholly or partly out of the state funds. No, it is incorrect. It does not even depend on state funds whether it is maintained or not. So first statement is incorrect. Second statement: article 15 otherwise it definitely prohibits discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. So that is true. That what is true. Second statement: article 15(3) empowers the state to make any special provision for women and children. 100% correct. It is said by the experts that if anything you want to do good for the women and children, do it under article 15. Third statement: article 15(5) allows the state to make special provisions for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens, or for the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes, in relation to admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions, whether aided or unaided, other than the minority education institutions referred in clause 1 of article 30. 100% correct. And here I would like to add one more thing. Whenever you see a statement which is too big, and the English which is given there, the vocabulary which is given there is hard to understand, most of the times that statement is correct. So please do remember that. So with this, most of the times, I mean, 70 to 80% times that statement would be correct. So don't go for the blind. If you know the answer, then choose the right answer. If you don't know, if you have to go for the blind, guess, and you want it, you won't apply that, then go for this one. It may be wrong, but most of the times it is correct. So with this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought here. Well, here the question is basically about the dance called Thayam, a ritualistic art form. Let's see what it is. What does the question say? The question says, consider the following statements regarding the Thayam, a ritualistic art form. First statement, Thayam is primarily performed in the states of Tamil Nadu. Totally incorrect. It is performed in the state of Kerala and may be found in the Karnataka also. So mostly found in Kerala. So first statement is incorrect. Second statement, Thayam. So we can eliminate option A, option C, and option D. We are left with option B. That would be the correct answer. But still, let's have a look at other statement. Statement B. Thayam performance often involves the invocation of deities and ancestral spirits. 100% correct. Third, the performance of Thayam belong exclusive to the Brahman caste. Totally incorrect. Fourth statement, Thayam rituals are closely associated with the temple festivals and sacred groves. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement would be statement 2 and statement 4 only. With this, we had completed our discussion with respect to the current affairs part. Now let's move to the another part where we will solve the question from the static portion. As you know, we are currently discussing the Indian polity, and in Indian polity, we are discussing the Parliament of India. And in Parliament of India, we know we are discussing the Raj Sabha. Till now we had discussed what are the various powers of the Raj Sabha. We had discussed it is financial powers, it is constitutional power, it is emergency powers. But today we are going to discuss few features of the Raj Sabha which are not federal in nature. Raj Sabha, whenever we think of the federal system in our country, we think of Raj Sabha. But there are few features of the Raj Sabha which are not federal in nature in our country. That we will discuss through this question, and a question about it can be asked in the prelims exam. Let's solve it. Here the question says, which of the following features of the Raj Sabha indicate a departure from strict federal principles of the Indian polity? First statement, unequal representation of states based on population. 100% correct. Irrespective of the population, as in US there is equal representation of every state, but in India there is very much unequal representation of states. It is totally based on the population. So first statement is correct. Second statement, the power of the parliament to form a new state or alter the boundaries of existing states without requiring the consent of the affected states. That is also one of the on subjects in the state list under Article 249. This is also true. You may be confused here why it is against the federal structure, even when the Raj Sabha itself, states itself are asking for that. Because of this, it is connected with which? It is connected with the unequal representation. Here what can happen? The top 10 states, top 10 big states can change the nature, can change the history of any particular state. So third statement is also correct. So with respect to this question, the correct code would be option D. That's 1, 2, and the 3 only. With this, I hope you had understood what are the key features which are strict, which are departure from the strict federal principles of Indian polity in the Raj Sabha. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought from the previous year questions. As you know, currently we are discussing questions from the world geography, and this question was asked in 2008. So please do remember the date, which is not necessary for you, but do know the question here. The question says, which one of the following straits is nearest to the international date line? It is Bering Strait. Correct answer. About international date line, it separates world into two dates. We can say from this side it would be, for example, it is 28th today here, and this side it would be, this line will separate, it would be 29th. And if we will rotate through the plane in this way, it would take 24 hours to reach this position. So this is how international, this is the little we can pictorial representation of international date line. So it separates two dates, we can say, and which is the nearest strait to it, it is Bering Strait. So with this, we complete our today's discussion. I hope you would have liked the video. I hope you would share it with your friends and I definitely hope you would subscribe the channel. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you very much and have a nice day.